Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Candlelight Vigil. My name is Brad Wolf. I'm the Executive Director of Reimagine, and it is so great to be here with you on this June 4th for a very, very special evening, morning, or afternoon, depending on where in the world you are. I know we already have folks who are joining us from Spain uh, with us, so I'm in San Francisco. In fact, if you want to get that chat moving, it would be wonderful to hear or learn by reading where you are dialing in from tonight, today, or this afternoon. And maybe, this is a candlelight vigil. This is about honoring um, what's in our hearts and one another. It'd be great to hear what emotions you're carrying with you as you move into this space. Later on, we're going to be able to share an experience, a person that we want to honor by being here. But we don't have to do that now. Now let's just introduce ourselves, say where we're calling in from, and what emotions we're feeling as we gather this evening. I'm feeling a sense of optimism just from being in the back chat, entering this call and meeting Leslie Gray Streeter and Nora McInerny, who we're just so excited to be with this evening. Now, a little bit about Reimagine. We are a nonprofit organization that is focused on seeing things differently, trying to reinterpret some of the hardest parts of life: loss, injustice, pain, loneliness, suffering, grief. And we do that namely by showing up, by being with those hard parts of life and not turning away, but rather sitting with, experiencing, acknowledging, being present for those hard parts of life. And we find that when we are able to do so, there's something that each of these terms connects to that's beyond what we feel in those moments of our darkest hours. For example, loss, we see that it is actually very much related to love. Equality can ultimately be born out of injustice. We can grow through our pain. We can build community out of loneliness. And our suffering can ultimately lead us to service. And what we're doing here this evening is about welcoming the entire range of the human experience. There's a lot of suffering in the world, a lot of pain, a lot of grief. We all feel those emotions. We all have different levels and different experiences, and we all come here with open hearts to really share what's possible when we come together to explore these things in community. So thank you in advance for your vulnerability. You don't actually need much vulnerability to be here. You've already done the hardest part, which is just showing up. And the rest is going to be just being present with what's happening, and we'll see where it goes. Thanks in advance. Let's see. I want to invite my colleague, Andy Engel, who was so fabulous in putting this experience together. He books all of our vigils and leads all of our online virtual programs. Andy's going to join me to share what kind of space this is this evening.
Thank you, Brad. This is a collective space to grieve. It's a space that cultivates compassion for others and for ourselves. Most of us have arrived here with some kind of pain in our hearts. And our hope is to help people of all backgrounds face loss, face adversity, and face mortality, and create a more compassionate world. This is a space for bravery. It takes courage to show up for others, especially people who you don't know. And it takes courage to lament and grieve in public. There are very few spaces to acknowledge and share personal and collective grief. With all that's going on in the world, in the US, now more than ever, people need to access gatherings where they can talk openly and freely about living and dying, about illness, and also about joy. Let's choose to respect and honor all lives, regardless of religion, nationality, or ethnicity. So thank you for co-creating this space with us. Finally, the space is not perfect. We might fumble, we might falter, we might offend. So we ask for your grace. What kind of space this isn't? It's not about blaming. It's not about imposing belief systems on others. It's not about providing solutions or fixing things. Another thing I want to emphasize is that although this is not a political space, it is a space to cultivate social justice. Our colleague Mazen Jamal has offered this definition of justice. It's, quote, an environment of integrity and wholeness achieved through healing and transformation. When justice is present, we can trust that our safety and well-being are valued in a community or a society. This is our aspiration for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. And this is your opportunity, now that we've grounded ourselves in what this space is about. If this doesn't feel like the right fit for you, it's totally okay to use the law of mobility and laptop closure or I guess browser window closure to find a new place to be this evening. But for those of you who are on board with what kind of space we're trying to create here, thank you so much in advance for giving us the grace and for honoring these principles that we've created together with you to create a safe, wonderful environment for connection. A little bit of background. My dear colleague, Dara, has made this fabulous altar that you will see throughout the evening of flowers that is going to be the centerpiece for this experience. Thank you, Dara. We're about to lean into the candle lighting, and I'm going to invite some colleagues up to participate in that. This is your opportunity to go grab a candle right quick if you don't already have one, and something to light it with. And if you don't have one, that's totally okay as well. But if you can grab one, this is the time. So we're going to light some candles. Then we're going to have our sacred conversation, which we'll introduce soon. We're going to then create space for an honor ceremony. We have a guest to introduce that experience who's going to be broadcast in via video this evening. And then we'll wrap up with our candle extinguishing and ultimately some announcements about some other experiences you can participate in. We have 80 more minutes of time together. So it's going to be a really special experience. For those of you that have been here before, thanks for being back. For those of you whose first time this is, thank you for participating. All right. So now let's grab our candles, and if we may, this is the time to light them. I'm going to call up my colleagues, Dara, Nicole, and Amanda, who are each going to read this blessing. And wherever you are in the world, feel free to say these words with us out loud, or feel free to read them and just keep them in your heart. Dara.
Thank you. By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
And now if you have your candles, this is a great opportunity to go into gallery mode, and we can hold up our candles to one another and look out amidst the sea of strangers, potentially new friends, and let the light into our rooms, our spaces, and find somebody that you don't know to make some eye contact with. They probably won't truly know it's you, but I think they'll be able to feel it. And that's the intention here, is to just take a pause. Let's take maybe 20 seconds or so and offer some kind of loving intention in our hearts to somebody you do not know, and just see what it feels like to share some kindness in your heart for a stranger. Thank you so much, everybody. I have to say that I was looking at you, Andy, even though I know you. Andy had told me that maybe it's awkward to name that I'm holding space for someone, so I wanted to have him feel the love from me tonight. Andy, how you doing? You good? All right. So with that in mind, with our candles lit, faces in the room, experiencing of taking a moment to be with somebody we do not know, imagining what the world would look like if that was the world we lived in all the time, where strangers were our friends. It is my privilege to introduce to you two incredible voices. I want to welcome up, first of all, Leslie Gray Streeter. Leslie is a frequent Reimagine guest speaker. You may know of Leslie's book, Black Widow, a memoir that looks at widowhood through the prism of race, mixed marriage, and aging. Tonight we'll hear about her debut novel, Family and Other Calamities. It was released just a few days ago. Congratulations. It's the story of a successful journalist who returns to her hometown of Baltimore to confront betrayal, scandal, and the grief over her husband's death. Leslie is also a successful journalist from Baltimore, where she lives with her son, Brooks. And now the incredible Nora, author of several funny books about sad things and the host of Thanks for Asking, a call-in podcast about what matters to you. You may have read her collection of essays, Bad Vibes Only. She's the author of two memoirs, No Happy Endings and It's Okay to Laugh. Crying is Cool Too. She's a remarried widow raising a blended family. And I also know that some of our staff members are huge fans of yours. So it is such a privilege to have you here with us. When we heard that you were going to be joining us, people were quite excited. And so we're very grateful to be with you this evening. And we're so happy to have this conversation begin. I'm going to take a back seat, disappear, and let you two be in dialogue with one another. And I just want to seat it with just asking you, Leslie, and maybe you, Nora, we just lit these candles. If I want to just hold some space for you, if there's something you want to share in your heart about who or what you've lit your candle in honor of. We're going to have an honor ceremony later. If you don't want to share with us here, that would be just welcomed. I feel like she needs to be
You
muted.
can't hear. You're unmuted. You need to be unmuted. I knew it. Okay. That's how in sync we are. Okay. You waved your hands and I knew she needs to be unmuted.
There we go. All right.
There we go. We
Don't
did
even
it.
do
We did
this.
it. We did it.
So
First of all, Brad Wolf, what a beautiful man. I'm sorry. I also want to just correct what Andy said. I am always perfect. So I think he was just speaking for himself, maybe other people. definitely not for me. But what a beautiful way to bring people together. I feel really grounded, but Leslie and I know each other through the kind of friendship you hope you never make. I would hope that Leslie and I would have been able to meet simply because we are both writers. We are both funny. We both love pop culture. Unfortunately, we met each other because we both joined the Hot Young Widows Club and very close to one another. So my grief resume, my loss resume is that I lost my husband, Aaron, in 2014. He was 35 years old. He had brain cancer. He died 6 weeks after my dad died of lymphoma. Thank you, Agent Orange, and the Vietnam War. My dad died 5 days after I lost my second pregnancy at 11 weeks and 6 days. So that was a lot, and that was also the impetus for everything that I have now, for everything that I am now, my point of view, my career, and my friendship with Leslie too.
Absolutely. I always say to people, because you'll be places, people, well, how do you know each other? It's like, well, something terrible happened.
Yeah.
We bonded
Yeah.
over that. Being in this widows group, particularly if you're a writer or whatever, it's a really being in the grief space. I've met so many actual friends, like my friend Megan went with me to see Nora in DC when she was speaking, and it's all these like lost people going, "Hi, we love each other." Also, ugh. It's a lot, but you can also talk to people in a different way when you know they're in the same club. You know, you kind of like find the same terrible things funny, and you get it. Nora and I have had so many discussions about when people say stupid things after you have a loss, like that people don't know what to say, and they say
Yeah.
dumb stuff. Like when my husband died, someone wrote on my Facebook page the day after he died, or maybe the day, Scott has ended his cycle around the sun. And it's like, I don't know if we should
Write that in your
do
journal.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
right there, it's like it's just the most
Yeah.
terrible things. It's like I get it, it's technically true, but that doesn't make you feel any better. It's like he's supposed to be watching Law and Order reruns in his recliner with me and not, so I'd rather him be here, so if you can talk to the sun, you can let it know that it's wrong. But
Yeah.
we also, like I said, we have a interesting sense of humor. um Nora is someone that going to her show live and watching all these people who, like, apparently some members of your staff have been so touched by her, it was like she's a rock star, where you're like the grief and, and loss and, like, painful thing happened, rock star, but she's such a humility about her, and such a, we all connect when something terrible happened and we can get through this together. And she just exudes that, just exudes it.
Mm. I think that I spent a lot of my life, most of my life, nothing bad had ever happened to me, Leslie. I think for a long time, I think the hardest thing that I'd gone through was that in third grade, I got a bowl cut. You saw the picture. I looked exactly, it was an unfortunate time to do it because Macaulay Culkin had just broken out in Home Alone, and I looked exactly like him. And if you are a little girl with a crush on a boy named Andy Hannon, you don't want to look exactly like Macaulay Culkin.
It
You
would be-
know, that was pretty tough. And I think it took actual suffering for me to realize that I was not the center of the world. And even when you are struck by grief, when your world falls apart, it sometimes does feel like you're the center of the loss, right? Something happens to you, you're the center of that. But I think that the process of grief can either close you down, like you can close yourself around it, or it can open you up to the rest of the world. And like you said, to the fact that it is something that we will all go through at some point. You will join this club whether or not you want to. In fact, exactly when you don't want to, you will join it. And that the thing that you think, if you think that your pain is what sets you apart from the world, you will soon learn that it is what makes you a part of the world. And I don't know if you were looking at the chat, Leslie, but I was. And we do have some very fresh widows
I
in the
saw,
chat.
I saw. And so I want to say to you guys, just breathe. Just, you don't have to be anything to anybody right now. You don't have to prove your grief. I'm a huge Law and Order fan, and one of the things I don't like about the show is that when someone dies, they go, "Well, the widow looks too happy." It's like, how dare you? You know. Well, no, on the show she did probably kill him, but the point I'm making is that you cannot judge someone's grief by if they smile, if they laugh, if they don't look too sad. No, if they're checking out the insurance like that day, that's probably a problem.
Yeah.
But you guys who are freshly widowed, I'm so sorry for your loss. And you get to be wherever you are right now. You don't have anything to prove to anybody else. Your grief will be, I'm sorry, Doris. I saw Doris just chimed in there about losing her husband 7 months ago. People will want to fix it. And Nora and I have had discussions about when there's a literary chapter in my book, like, aren't you over this yet? You know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because they want to be able to just keep going and have you be fun at the party again.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like bringing it down, you're bringing down the mood. And you can leave. One of the best things that happened, one of the best parts of that process was gaining the ability that I have now kept 10 years, it'll be 10 years this year later, is to go, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, do you want to go to this? No, I don't. And your body just shuts down and tells you when you need to go to sleep. Like in those first few months or so, when you need to go to sleep, when you need to eat, when you just need to be the heck out of the building or the room or the company that you're in at the moment. And you, like I said, you don't have to be polite. You don't have to be gracious. Get some friends and have them family, let them do that for you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that there is something to outsourcing the management of other people's feelings. I think probably everyone here is familiar with that illustration of like the concentric circles of grief and loss, right? And the idea is that if you are at the center of it, you know, it's your husband dies, your father dies, you can dump your feelings outward, right? To people who are on outer circles, right? And if you're on an outer circle, and you got to really think about who's on the outer circle, because everyone does think they're on the inner circle, like you can only pour comfort in.
Yes.
And that is very, very hard for people to do. I know it's been hard for me to do in the past. And I basically deputized my sister, Leslie, to be the person who is going to handle all of the people who wanted to like help in some way. I know everybody wants to help, to manage, you know, kind of other people's expectations and other people's feelings. And I think I will always be in emotional debt to my sister for taking that on when she was pretty far into that, in that circle too. You know what I mean? It was her brother-in-law. It was, you know, it was our family who was going through that. And I think that was so helpful. But what's also helpful is what we have, which is you have to meet someone. This counts, by the way. That's why these kinds of events are so important. You have to have somebody in your world who gets it and who is not expecting you to be immediately who you were before, because you may not ever be
Never.
that person again, and that's okay.
And even if you become a person that likes to watch John Wick movies again, or likes to, you know, sit on the floor and eat cheese or whatever. And I never stopped being that person. But people are trying to figure out, and like a lot of it, I think, is graciousness, because the people who don't want to push you, people who want you to come back to where you are, where you can be organically. And there's some people, like I said, who are probably over there, way over there, who are thinking about their comfort, because it's so hard to deal with. And having been at the locus of grief, but you know, my dad died in 2012, my grandfather died in 2011, my husband died in 2015. There was just bam, bam, bam. It wasn't, you know, as close like your losses were so like chronologically close together. But there was this idea of, and it probably put it on myself, of trying to be okay because you feel like you're supposed to be okay. I became a single mother like in a minute.
Yeah.
And so having, you know how that is. So having to, okay, literally is someone else in this house that can take care of the shots. I'm just going to go cry and do fireball shots in the backyard. Don't do that. Fireball is nasty. But you know,
It's so bad.
It's so bad. It's so terrible. But I had my mom who came down and became my my co-parent, and my twin sister and all of most of my bridesmaids, because I got only been married for 5.5 years, so they all showed up again, and they're like, particularly with people I didn't want to talk to at the funeral, they were kind of like, I can tell the story. There were people from my late husband's former employer who I didn't love, and they kind of parted in a way. So you have to deal with those people too. So they wanted to make a check presentation.
Oh my God.
They were like,
What?
yeah, because they collected money. And they were like, "You're high. Just give her the money." So we're at
It's not like a walkathon. It's a
No.
funeral. What are you talking about? Just wire me the money.
What does she want, Dave? A late husband.
Oh,
There you are. So we're at the thing, and my friend Stephanie, who's about this big, little, raised in North Carolina, little redheaded Southern belle. She's like, "I got you." So she gets me a plate. I hadn't eaten anything. She gets me a plate of cheese, and she goes, "The people want to give you the thing." So I make them do it in the hallway, and everyone's walking by because I refuse to give them like hoopla or whatever. So she's holding this plate of cheese, and they're going, "Oh, we miss Scott, we love him so much." I'm like, "Oh, whatever." And she's holding it like stone face, holding the cheese, and I'm taking blocks of cheese and dipping them in ranch dressing and eating them as I'm talking. Like, so interesting. Check. Which is yes, yeah. I would like because I have to go through this and the cheese to get the money.
a check presentation. I won't ever get over this. I
It
won't
was.
ever get over this.
It's like you weren't great when he was alive, and now you're making his death a show of your guilt. It's great. Thank you. It wasn't everyone from that company. Some of these people from that company were very great. The guy giving me the check. Meh, meh. So, and that was one of those moments where it's like I couldn't be anything for anybody else. I could not sit there with a sign with people I truly did not like because I felt that the person I was grieving a couple days, it had been like 3 days or whatever. I had to like do this. And I was like, cheese and check. This is what we're doing. And people just have weird expectations of you. So to have people who will be the buffer between you and the ick, and it's everything from those people to who's going to pick so-and-so up from the airport. Like literally at our little house, they didn't tell me, people just showed up, and it was like a game show, like a variety show. You'd walk in and go, "It's a Christmas special. Oh my God, look who's here." And I'd hug them. They're like, "What?" And I go, "Okay, great. I'm gonna go back and sleep now. Bye." And I'd come back
Bye.
and bye. And there'd be more people there. It was very odd. But you do what you have to do. When did you realize that you were becoming okay? Like I said, it's never solved. It's never completely.
Yeah. Honestly, it took a long time. It took a long time, Leslie. And I think I presented very fine. And I think that I have, through therapy that I started way too late. There's a chapter in my first book about how I don't need to go to therapy.
How'd that work out?
Because what are they going to tell me? I'm sad. That's a quote from me. What are they going to tell me? I'm sad. I would like to say it was a simpler time in 2014. I didn't know anyone went to therapy. We definitely weren't doing like telehealth. I would have, this is all my caveats. I would have had to find time with like a child at home, and no job, therefore no insurance anymore, all this stuff. There were all these things, but I truly was like, I can do this and I can do it on my own. And I truly remember thinking like, if Jackie Kennedy can pick up pieces of her husband's brain and show up at a funeral looking hot, I can do this, right? She was so unwell. Okay, read a biography of this woman. Okay, she was not well. She was the original fake it till you make it. She truly was. Like, and that was not a standard to hold myself to. I think that I became well-ish, right? Like happy-ish, all this stuff. Like it took me a long time, Leslie. I just hit the 10-year mark. Yeah. I will say that the past year, I've started to feel normal. I've started to feel like I am okay. I have been married for 8 years, maybe. I don't know. It was for insurance reasons. Okay. We were going to be very modern. Okay. I was like, we don't need to get married. Okay. We have a baby. We can still, like, we can raise each other's kids. Like, we don't need to get married. And then I was like, I actually would really love health insurance. What do you say? Should we do this? So we've been married for 2 years, but a lot of the work that I did, I'm glad I did it, right? I'm glad I wrote those books. I'm glad I made a podcast. I'm glad I went on all these tours. And a lot of that was me processing things out loud. The tour that you went to, I was saying things on stage that were basically, this is 2022, me saying, like, I'm having a mental breakdown because I was. I was having a mental breakdown. I left that tour and I Googled luxury mental breakdown, affordable mental breakdown near me, mental hospital with nice sheets, you know, like,
If you're gonna break down, you might as well be comfortable. There might as well be a
right?
discount, you know. What do we
Right.
got?
And it's like, what I discovered was like, I was like, I used work as an addiction to keep me from feeling anything too deeply.
Absolutely.
So it's really been, I would say I did the most healing in the past like 2 years than I did in those like first 8. And a lot of those years were just like purely still trying to survive. And I do think that the way things happened, in a 6-week span, um, I had to start working right away. This is a reality of living in America. If you are in the chat, Danielle, not us trying to
So are you-
optimize our breakdowns. Yeah, babe, me too. I was like, not only can I optimize this breakdown, I won't cancel this tour. I'll work the mental breakdown into the tour.
There you
Then
go.
no one can be mad at me.
Because you
Okay.
fulfilled your obligation, but also brain.
Yes. But
Well,
also, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Like, but everybody who is in the chat, like, if you are currently grieving, like, just hardcore, you're in it. I know there are some people who are like 14 months in, 2 weeks in, 6 weeks in. What was your bereavement leave like? Did you get 2 days? Because that is the average in America if you have a full-time job with benefits. 5 days, Colleen. Wow. Oh my God, generous, generous. Were you ready to go back after 5 days, Colleen? No, you weren't. Okay. None of us were. Like my dad died. I think I took Friday off. I was back there on a Monday. And I remember looking at like my coffee mug that I'd left at my cubicle, Leslie, and it was like the dried coffee that just like spent
yeah.
all weekend there. And I was like,
Think
oh
about
my
that.
gosh, the last time I used this mug, my dad was alive,
Oh, jeez.
you know?
I get that. I
Like,
had 10 days. Well, no,
yeah,
the Palm Beach Post was incredible. Where I worked
yeah,
at the time in West Palm Beach, Florida, gave me an incredible amount of time. Like my dad, I'd spent a week
yeah.
in Little Rock when my dad was very sick, and I worked. I'm interviewing people. The dude from what's that band, How to Save a Life, whatever they were.
I know. I know.
Yeah, that
Okay.
band.
I
So
know. Yes.
they were coming to a festival that used to be in West Palm Beach called Sunfest, and I was like, "You let me go. I'll work." And I'm literally down the hall in the waiting room in the hospital, interviewing this guy, and I cannot remember whether I told him why I was where I was. I was like, "Okay, thank you, dude from the Fray." The Fray, that's the
The
band.
fray.
That's the
Yes.
guy. Great song. So I was working, and then I left for a week when he died. And then when Scott died, they actually gave me a month. 'Cause
Okay.
I had been there at that point for
Yeah.
13 years, and they were
Yeah.
like, you should do, and honestly, I was not ready. When I came back, it's because I just needed to do something. I had been at home, and I was with my mom in Little Rock, and she was packing up to come move with me. She was planning to, before Scott died, come and be like free, sexy, widowed, 60 something, whatever. And then when Scott died, I said, hey, why don't you just move in with me? And I was like, oh no, what did
Yeah.
I ask? So she was coming down, moving everything. And I remember having a breakthrough sitting in the parking lot. The first day I went back to work, I had been gone so long that my pass didn't work anymore.
Oh God.
So I thought, oh my God, did they fire me? So I walk
Mhm.
in, and there was this very nice security guard who also used to always talk about sports or whatever, about your husband's a Ravens fan, whatever, and he didn't know what to talk about. So he sees me, oh my God, it's so nice to see you, and my pass won't work. And he goes, let me call upstairs. So what do you think? They fired me? It was so embarrassing. So I go upstairs, and I'm there for like maybe 2 hours because everyone's coming around, hugging me, hoping I'm okay. And I sat there, I went to the bathroom and cried. And then I went to my editor, whose name was Larry, and said, I gotta go. He's like, you don't have to come back. So I was like, I do, because otherwise, because Brooks, it was
Yeah.
2, was
Yeah.
in daycare, and I couldn't just sit there and like stare at the house that did not have a husband in it anymore. So I remember about a month later or so coming back to the parking lot, and I just had this like, I need to just cry it out. And I'm dating myself. 1987, Whitney Houston, the VMAs,
Mm.
does a live version of Didn't We Almost Have It All?
Oh,
And I was like, why don't I just sing the saddest freaking song in the world? And Whitney, still grieving Whitney, she died in 2012. She's like, her hair is like the big, beautiful, like, 80s, whatever. And she's wearing a bomber jacket with a scarf. And she's like, the didn't we almost have it? And she pauses like she's gonna cry. And
yeah.
her eyeliner is going. I'm like, ah! I'm watching the video in my car. I'm like, please, I hope nobody is walking by
Yeah.
my car. They're like, Leslie's freaking out again. She's in the parking lot losing her crap again. But it was that opportunity to say, if I'm going to go in this building, I
Yeah.
need to get all of this out. I need to just do the most shamelessly sad thing in the world and cry along with Whitney. So anyway, and that worked. I mean, it didn't
Yeah.
everything permanently better, but at least got me through the day. I just like, I didn't have anything left. And I kind of laugh like, people are definitely thinking I've lost my mind.
Yeah. And in a way you did, because I do think like it is madness. Like I understand, like they went mad with grief. It is
Oh, for sure.
such like an upending of your world and your life. Like, of course you do, but you're also expected to just sort of like move through this world that is still spinning for everybody else. And I think that's part of like the disorientation. And I am keeping an eye on this chat, and I do want to hear one, what helped you? Like, what was the most helpful thing? And two, just the most unhinged thing you did while you were deep in grief. Like, did you scream, sing to Didn't We Almost Have It All in the parking lot of your job? If you did, I I think that's beautiful. I think that's great. And if you didn't, do you wish you had? Because I wish that I had. I loved crying in the car, the freeway especially, screaming on the freeway. Gorgeous, gorgeous experience.
I have
Gorgeous.
this moment, and I still have it's moved with me now to 3 different houses, Scott's recliner, because it's nice to look out the window. I'm up on my
Yeah.
floor in our house in Baltimore. I remember like, it was so melodramatic. I knew it was melodramatic. I like collapse on the floor and I'm screaming at God. Why? Like Nettie in The Color Purple,
Yeah.
why? And then I started to laugh because I thought, I'm gonna get smote right now. I'm just gonna boof, big old thunderbolt, smote, smote, smote. And he wasn't gonna smote me. Scott probably wasn't smote. He did not smote me at that moment. But I was just like, give him back, give him back. And I'm like, I feel like I make lots of pop culture references. I felt very much like Nettie. I felt like Sally Field's character in Steel Magnolias, because she's that why moment.
Mhm.
I could run from here to Baton Rouge, but my daughter can't. She never could. And I remember watching that in high school and going, well, that is very dramatic.
Yeah. Okay. Get it together.
Get it
Okay.
together,
Okay.
Sally. Cheesy.
Okay.
There are people
Yeah.
watching you. You're in a cemetery, for God's sake. Pull it together.
Yeah.
And then like to be having that same moment, and you can't ever tell when it's going to come, which is what, and this is advice to those newly widowed people, people with new loss. If you got to get the hell out of wherever you are to have your
Mhm.
breakdown, get the hell out of there. Don't ask for permission. If you're
Yeah.
about to cry, get up and leave.
Yeah.
Say, excuse yourself. And I tried to always do it artfully so it didn't make other people uncomfortable. But here's the most important thing. Their comfort was not important as mine was in that moment. And
Mhm.
people who love you will not hold you some weird standard of the before time, where
Yeah.
you had regulation of your emotions and you had
Where your life was your life. You know what I mean? Like there is like this huge like, seismic shift in who you are and your reality, and the right people and the people who show up, they might not be the people you expect, but the right people are people who are going to give you space and grace to reconcile those two
that is
realities.
that is a huge thing to remember, that there are
Yeah.
people that like when my father died, there were people who were friends with my mother who didn't show up to the funeral. And I was really angry at those people. And now I think that
Mhm.
they were just going through something
Yeah.
else. but I was like, suck it up for a half an hour. My mother needs you, right? So I was a
Yeah.
lot less forgiving, of those people. And there were people that I thought would have, I mean, people showed up for me. There were some people I thought would have hung around longer. And there's some people that I became really good friends with in the after that I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get it. One of my very
Yeah.
best friends, Libby, we were always really good friends, and we lived very close to each other. And when my mother and I and Brooks moved, we wound up down the street from her and her husband and her beautiful dogs. And so we just became like that. It just,
Mhm.
and she became a support. She was always my friend, but she became a support, a really close support in a way that I had not expected. And those are, once again, there's nothing great about grief, but there are lovely things that can come.
Yeah.
The relationships truly are like, becoming friends with you. There was this moment where we were both of us have tried to have had books optioned that never became movies or TV shows.
Yep.
And so Kenan Thompson from SNL had a show for 2 seasons where he was a widower. And I remember texting Nora and going, Dag
God
nabbit,
dang
Kenan.
it. I know. I
I was like, you're
know.
not even a widow. You're
I
not widowed.
know. You faker,
You
but
get a freaking
actor.
show. I was
Yeah.
so mad. And it is not practical to be mad at Kenan Thompson
I know.
because I don't know him.
I
And he
know.
seems like a lovely person. He survived being a kid star. He was in Good Burger. He's the longest running SNL cast member. But in that moment, I was like, damn it, I need the money, Kenan.
I know. I know. I know. Dead to Me. Dead to Me came out and Hot Young Widows Club died. It's yeah, and you have to be angry at something nonsensical and out of your control because it just feels better. You know what I mean? And like anger feels better than sadness, even though like it just traces right back to it, which is so interesting. Um, but I want to ask you something that I know we've talked about before too, which is like you wrote a memoir, which is
Mhm.
honestly one of the best memoirs. I recommend it to everybody,
Oh,
especially like fresh widows. I'm like, just read Black Widow. Like, read Black Widow. And tragically, like that book was a pandemic book, right? Like
it
that,
was literally, it came out March 10th,
it's like, come on. Okay,
2020.
come on.
And
Yeah.
then 7 days later, everything went wah wah wah, because literally a week later, because everything started to shut down very quickly. I got
Yeah.
3 events in, and the very last one, they're like, "You're lucky." I'm like, "Uh-oh." And then for by St. Patrick's Day, everything had shut down. All the
Yeah.
stuff. I did get to do some cool stuff. Like I was supposed to be on the Today Show, like literally sitting with Hoda and Jenna,
Yeah.
and I wound up doing it from my bedroom in West Palm Beach, talking to David Kessler. So I mean, if you're gonna do a thing,
Yeah.
great to be talking to David Kessler. But yeah, nothing worked the way that I thought it was going to. So to be in this moment, um, I mean, we're bird flu and new COVID is happening, so who knows how long it's going to last? But they're not going to shut anything down. So I'm just
Yeah.
gonna, like, mask and use my crazy nose spray and hope that people don't get too close to me.
Yeah.
Very quick before we go into the book, I want to tell you, we were talking about being mad at people. I was mad at the people who were just actors on this commercial because my husband died of a heart attack, about like
Mm.
heart disease,
Yeah.
because the people in the commercial lived, and it's like they were singing like, tomorrow, you're always a day away. I'm like, how dare you live, fake actor
Yeah.
guy, with your fake
Yeah.
heart attack? And my mother's like,
Mm-mm.
this is not rational. I'm like, just go yell it's fine, yell at the people. I'm
Yeah.
sitting on the couch going, ah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Let me get mad at a medication commercial if I want to. Okay. And I want to. That's
yeah.
what I would, yes. I
That's
think
what
it's
I
a
needed.
healthier outlet than, some of the rage that I felt and also let out. But to go from writing a memoir, which is pulling from your very, very real life and experience, to writing a novel, to me feels like such a transition. But obviously, the main character in your book is also a widow. And to me, these two pieces of work are kind of like the experience of grief itself, which is like there is a period in time where this experience, whatever experience that you are experiencing for all the people. How many times can I say experience?
Ooh, keep it
If you're
going.
in the chat, right? If you're in the chat and you are in it, it might be the headline of your life right now. there was a time where it's like, that was the most important thing you could know about me. You had to know. You had to know, right? And sometimes it still is, but like more and more as time goes on, it's like it's not the title of the book anymore. It is just woven into the pages. And that's what these two books are. As a reader of yours, is Black Widow is like, that is the headline, that is the book, that is your definitive experience. And Family and Other Calamities is you bringing that knowledge, that wisdom, that a dichotomy of, absurdity and awfulness that is grief, and just weaving that into the pages. So I want to know if that was intentional or if it's just, you know, a case of write what you know.
It started from Write What You Know, and then as a journalist, I'm a columnist, so I've always used like first person. I write other things, but I've often used first person voice. So the memoir was just like a 300 page column, basically. But I was like, so in fiction, you're telling me you get to make things up, and I'm been reminded lately of this woman who was lovely, but she said something dumb when I wrote my first story for the Palm Beach Post about Scott dying. She said, I was very disappointed in the end of your love story. I was like, well, me too, man. Yes. And Amanda's like, so what? Yes.
Yeah, it sucked.
It's like I had made some, like, it's like, no, girl, I wouldn't have ended that way either. Are you? So in this book, the character Dawn, named after the Frankie Valli song, because, it's always a reference to something, is a journalist and a widow like me who married a cute Jewish guy, except for this one also has when she's young, a friend who looks suspiciously like Morris Chestnut, because someone has to, and they're really close friends. He's mentoring her, and then he steals a story from her. And because I write it like a sitcom, something wacky happens at the exact moment that something else happens, and she leaves town in basically disgrace, quits her job, doesn't tell anyone, leaves literally with this guy who's a source. Don't sleep with your source if you're a journalist, but she does. And then she flies off to LA, and then she assumes everything's okay. Because the guy winds up winning a Pulitzer, her now terrible enemy, and her sister's kind of left holding the bag as the whistleblower for this scandal. And so they're trying. So she just like, you know what? I'll make a new life and just go over here, and I will deal with you guys when I have to. And no one, particularly after her husband dies, feels comfortable yelling at her or whatever. But when she comes back to bury his ashes, she finds out that her former friend is making a movie out of this story that he rode to fame on, and she is the villain of the piece. She and her husband are the villain of the piece. So he figures if he dirties her up, then no one will believe anything that she says. So she crashes his press conference, and then things go. It's so funny well, I'm older than you, but as a Gen Xer, I grew up watching like Scooby-Doo and Murder, She Wrote and that kind of thing. So the end of the book is very much like, it wraps it up, and it's, and you did this and you did that, and white people coming in, it's big surprises. And one of the reviews on MSN said, it was really corny. It was like an episode of Scooby-Doo. I'm like, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It's supposed to be. But yeah,
it's supposed to be. Well, I don't agree with it being corny, but I do agree, like, it is written like a sitcom or like a comedy film, where it's like the dialogue is so sharp, the dialogue is so real, but like so are the feelings, and so is the depth. And I think that avoidance and like that kind of, geographic cure is like, I felt that. Like I felt that when Aaron died. I just left Minneapolis. I was on a plane with my 2-year-old, being like, we're going anywhere we know someone who has a couch or a spare bedroom. That's what we're doing. We're going to be somewhere. And I know you did the same thing too. Like, you and Brooks were like on the go.
Like, went to Little Rock, went to New York. I'm like, where do I not have to be? And I would go to my sister's house, but I was staying in their guest room / family room, and that's where I used to stay with Scott. I was like, it just, so I would try to go places that were unfamiliar, like find a new hotel we hadn't been to. I'm a big hotel person, just like going to people's houses. And I had this little baby who was 2, and I couldn't really explain to him what was going on. It's just like daddy was there and then he wasn't, all that. So it's just terrible. Yeah. But so getting out of places, that goes back to, you do what you have to do, because your nervous system, I think, is very responsive and tells you, it's fight or flight, man, and I want to fight nobody. except for the people
Yeah.
in the check ceremony. So I wanted to fight them, but there
Yeah.
were really a lot of other people. There were some family members I'm gonna go to that I was like, don't say nothing to me. Don't
Yeah.
just take your cake and go over there. And that's a combination of actual beef, and also I just didn't know how to deal. Once again, I could not deal with other people's emotions. I could not
Mm.
deal with other people's like you said, you cannot be the steward of other people's reaction to your grief. You cannot comfort someone. That happens so much. I've talked to so many widows who talk about being in the receiving line or whatever, and people crying to them. I love Brian so much. You're like, why are you telling me? Because like
Yeah.
I can't comfort you.
Samesies. Yeah.
Yeah, through my widowhood. And you're like, can somebody get her,
Yeah.
please? 'Cause
Yeah, same. I feel the same way. I feel the same way. When you're writing Dawn as like a character, fiction is fiction, right? And I think uh novelists do tend to be asked like, but is it you? Like, is Dawn you? Dawn's not you. I know
no,
that, but are there elements of wish fulfillment in the way Dawn behaved?
there is the fact that Dawn did not have children, so she was able to get up and move. I mean, she was 23 when she first moves overseas and moves across the country, but then she doesn't have to come back,
Yeah.
and it happens, the death happens right after COVID. So she cannot immediately fly to
Mm.
Baltimore. And so she waits until her husband's mother dies. And so she really has to go back then, and they're doing the headstone unveiling. So it's a whole thing that's happening, and she's going to inter the ashes there. And so yeah, it would have been really great to be able to run away and be able to say, I cannot physically deal with any of you right now because there's a pandemic, y'all, sorry. And to kind of go through that. I think there's also, she is selfish in a way that I don't think that I was, and maybe I would have been if I'd had the chance to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because she just has herself and her cats, George Michael and Andrew Wham, to those Gen Xers will get what I'm talking about, to deal with out there, and then she has to deal with everybody. You have to
Yeah.
go and you have to deal with all of your stuff. But Dawn, actually, it's so funny. I first wrote this character when I was right out of college. I wanted to go to film school, and so between college and then moving to York, Pennsylvania, where I spent 8 years, I was like, I'm gonna find a way to write a screenplay. I wrote it literally longhand in a spiral notebook, and I ordered a way for, I don't even know remember how you did those things before the internet, but somehow I found the address of a place that would sell you screenplays, probably in the back of like
Mhm.
Premiere Magazine or Entertainment Weekly or something. And I got the soundtrack, I mean, the screenplay to Some Kind of Wonderful, the 1987 John Hughes movie starring Eric Stoltz, Leah Thompson, and Mary Stuart Masterson. And I really loved the Mary Stuart Masterson character. She's this cool, like, drummer girl, and she like, she is pining for her male best friend who's in love with this girl he doesn't really know, and she's just trying to keep it together, whatever. So there's a stoicness that's, as when you get older, you look back and go, "Oh my God, girl, you weren't in love with that person. Just tell them you love them or not, or just
I know.
just keep it moving." But at 23, you feel that same kind of stoicness,
Mhm.
for no reason. There is
Yeah.
nothing bad happening in my life other than I was trying to, figure out, what was going on in my life. But that character evolved. So when I was like, I want to write a novel, I was like, wait, what stories have I started that I didn't finish? And I thought, what if that character is now in her 50s? And so I knew these
Yeah.
characters, no one else did. So I knew Dale.
Yeah.
I wrote it when she first meets Dale, and I wrote it, but at that time she's in a band. She and Joe are in a band, and her sister Tanya's in the band. And the first version I wrote of this, that was them 30 years later, was had been in a 90s band, and she quit right before they got famous, but they could never quite write her out of it because she had written their biggest hit. So they tried to, 30 years later, get back together without her and not take her on the tour. So when I pitched that, and my editor, Selena James at Lake Union Publishing, said, the music thing,
Oh.
people keep comparing it to Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you do something else? And it became journalism. Oh, is our timer off? Did we talk that long?
We did. We did. Okay, but it became journalism. I love that you like, we're going to finish up this thought, but like, I love that you went back to something that you wrote years ago. I love that. I love that. I'm so inspired by that.
I felt like they deserved an ending. I felt like,
Yeah.
once again, I'm grieving these people that no one else has ever met before.
Yeah.
And sort of like, and to go back, and I have no idea where those notebooks are. If this book becomes a hit, I'll have to
Yeah.
find them and like sell them on eBay or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is very, very cool. That is very, very cool.
Thank you.
All right, I'm coming in hot. Hello. First of all, Nora and Leslie, your friendship and your journeys through widowhood and beyond really show us something beautiful about where joy can come from and what can rise out of something really, really painful. I'm curious, before we let you hang out for a few minutes before we bring you back, if you don't mind, someone's coming up for me. I'm curious, you both have such a joyful affect in your relationship and how you're carrying yourself and in your conversation. How do you each find joy amidst hard things?
I'll go. I'll just say that right now, with once again, we're not going to be political, but everything is a hard thing. Every day is a hard thing. You turn on the news, you open the newspaper, everything is a hard thing. And I think you have to have joy. Maybe it's the hysterical joy of a mad woman, but it's the thing. And people will, on the internet will go, how can you think about Real Housewives at a time like this? It's like, because if I don't, I will just lose my mind. I just wrote about Love Hotel, where, three of the older housewives and the skinny cute one, I don't know who let her.
Perfect show.
Yes, it's so great. And they go and they're trying to find love or whatever. And I focus on that because it's so stupid and has absolutely no bearing on my life. And I think I did that a lot. Like when Scott died, my friend Jason came down and we watched John Wick. He's like, he's a widow, and then they killed his puppy. I'm like, oh no. So whatever can keep you distracted, and at this point, it's been a decade or so for both of us. Finding I think we're the people need, because we can say, hey, listen, you're not disrespecting your loss or how hard things are. And you need that moment,
Yeah.
to not be so focused on death and crap all the time.
Yeah. And also, I think it's all blended together. It's all like strands of the same thread. And I am not naturally, I don't know if I was like always naturally like this, but Aaron was a very buoyant person. Had I been diagnosed with brain cancer when I was 31, I would have been so uninspirational. I got to tell you guys, if I'm diagnosed with brain cancer today, do not look to me for inspiration. I will pout, I will throw a fit, I will be angry, I'll be upset, I will not do any I will be the worst person, right? And Aaron had like just a very natural ability to be like, well, what are you going to do? And even being in the hospital with him when he woke up from brain surgery, like he always found like the fun in everything, which sounds so strange, but to the point where when we check into the hospital for him to do his chemo or his radiation, like he'd always call it the hotel accidentally, and he'd like pick movies to watch that we could only watch, like, or TV shows that we could only watch at the hospital. And he had this thing that he would say when he was sick, and he said it before he was sick too. And he'd just say, like, it's going to be okay. Because I'm not naturally a chill person. I'm a panicker. And I never once believed him. I didn't believe him when it was like small potatoes. Like I worked in advertising and I'd be like, this guy that I work with is so rude. Read this email. What do you think he means by this? I was so keyed up about everything. Aaron never got flustered. And he said it when he was dying. And I definitely didn't believe him then. But I try to realize that like it's not everything is going to be okay. Like look around the world, like we can all probably name 10 or 15 things that are not okay and never will be. But he kept it beautifully vague, and I try to find like an okay thing around me at all times. And it can be small and it can be silly, but it's always sincere, because even when things are like awful, there's always one tiny point of light. And I think it shines brighter if we stare directly into it. So that's not denying the reality of it at all.
No.
It's not like toxic positivity. I'm not telling you to look on the bright side. I'm telling you for your own survival to like notice, however small it is, even if you are just like the thing today, like your own beating heart, the blood in your veins, the breath in your lungs, like something is okay. And when I don't feel like it is, I try to be that thing for someone else.
And that's the joy of having gone through this. I'm very sorry. My computer was dying, so I had to go get the plug, and then I accidentally, because my left stick unplugged the ring light, and I can't see to put it back. So you get me spooky in the
It's
dark.
reality, baby. Okay.
Oh.
I had to turn off the air conditioning because it's so loud. I'm dripping sweat. Okay? But
Well, wow.
otherwise, all you would hear is the air conditioning. Even with like Zoom saying we'll suppress the background sound, not for this air conditioner. No, you can't. You can't. No, had to turn it off. So
All right. Well, it's a perfect time then for maintenance issues to be maintained. For us to wrap up this portion of the journey this evening, Nora McInerny, Leslie Grace Streeter, everybody, what a wonderful pairing, what a wonderful friendship. I would encourage everyone in the chat to share some gratitude. I had just seen two things that were popping down. The kind of call to the power of your conversation. Someone saying, or Lynn saying, also everyone should watch Nora's TED Talk. It helped me a lot when I watched it a few weeks after. And then right below that, someone said, I just purchased both of Leslie's books. So, you know, your stories, your journeys, your words have a lot of power to inspire us, and all of our words do. And I think I appreciate you modeling that for all of us, to show how each of our stories, each of our journeys, by shining a light on it, by being real and vulnerable and containing the multitudes of our humanity, how it has a catalytic effect on the world. And that's what we hope to spark at Reimagine from this little corner of the internet. Thank you for being here, and share some gratitude, everybody, in the chat for both of them. With that in mind, I'm so excited to introduce somebody that Andy has brought to our midst, who cannot be here tonight because he is in Spain. Henry Cameron Allen is an internationally certified grief counselor, universal life skills mentor, and Reimagine collaborator. Following the passing of his 13-year-old son, Cameron, to a rare brain cancer, he founded the Lost Travelers Club. It's a global sanctuary that reimagines grief and empowers purpose for parents who have outlived their children. He is the award-winning author of the Lost Travelers Field Guide, Navigating the Grief Journey Through a Quantum Lens. And right now, yes, it's very early in the morning in Spain, and that's where Henry lives, and he was eager to lead what we're about to do now together, the honor ceremony, and regrets that he can't be here in person. So instead, he has shared some remarks in a video, which Andy will cue up.
Hello, I'm Henry Cameron Allen, international grief counselor and mentor and founder of the Lost Travelers Club. It's an honor to be with you here tonight. We gather in these quiet spaces, wondering how to move forward when our worlds have changed forever. This is sacred territory, and your presence is an act of deep bravery, so thank you for being here. In 2008, my son Cameron, my only child, succumbed to brain cancer at age 13. I was a single father, and for years the pain of his physical absence felt like a deepening hole in my soul. Since being diagnosed with CPTSD, I've decided that the SD should stand for spiritual development instead of stress disorder. It feels more accurate to how I've experienced grief. I wish I'd understood that in my darkest times, because for years I believed my joy had died with Cameron. Grief felt like a heaviness to endure. In fact, grief and gravity share the same Latin root. Then I discovered something that was life-changing for me, that mourning is a temporary and passive state, nothing to do with it but be in it, whereas grief is active and permanent. We can channel our grief into amazing things. And once I accepted that and started practicing it, I realized that what I was experiencing wasn't loss. like misplacing a set of keys or sunglasses. It was an opening in me, a portal to transformation. This is what I've coined as super grief, a state beyond conventional sorrow, where grief transforms into a gentle companion and teacher on life's journey. It's alchemy, the turning of lead into gold. Unlike the vortex of mourning, which keeps us stuck in our sorrow, super grief focuses on who we are becoming out of grief. It's an unexpected invitation to discover new purpose and possibility. When life takes its unexpected turns, we're introduced into a new relationship with reality. We sense connections that transcend what we thought possible, experiencing love and meaning in ways that defy explanation. We're not the same people who walked into this experience. Grief has rewired our brains, expanded our hearts, and opened new doorways into self-awareness. Grief isn't something to be healed or fixed. It's something to navigate with wisdom, emotion, intuition, and support. This doesn't minimize our pain. Our grief is sacred and profound, but within that perceived loss, something else lives. The seeds of transformation that can only grow in the rich soil of deep emotion, love, and radical change. You might be feeling a bit lost, as we've all felt, but being lost is often the first step on a meaningful journey, isn't it? The question isn't how to stop feeling lost, it's how to navigate these new territories with confidence, daring to explore the back roads of grief that don't show up on any map. Tonight, as we honor all that we've mourned, our loved ones, our former selves, our changed circumstances, know that we are exactly what transformation looks like when it encounters profound mystery. Embrace that mystery, lean into it. Grief can be an initiation into versions of ourselves that can hold both the heartbeat and the silence, the separation and the connection, the endings and the infinite possibilities. Your journey matters, and who you're becoming matters more than you can imagine. It's time to reimagine what grief can become for you. As we move into our musical interlude now, we invite you to connect in the chat. Share a word, a reflection about your grief journey, a name, a memory, your mourning, your discovering. Let's hold space for each other's stories and remember that in sharing our grief, we transform it from isolation into connection, from lead into gold. Thank you, and blessings on your journey.
What we're going to do now is we're going to take some time as a community to ground ourselves, to think in our hearts and in our minds, in our bodies, about really why you're here. Maybe it's somebody that you've lost that you want to honor. You can share their name. Maybe it's an experience you have that was hard, that you've grieved, and you want to honor that experience by sharing about it in the chat. Grief comes in many different forms, and we want to create a space to contain all of that here. And so the chat, over the next couple minutes, I'll play some gentle guitar music, and let's just take some time with one another to share these reflections, and also to keep our eyes on the chat and our hearts open to receive what we're each sharing, because collectively, there's something really beautiful about creating a space together where we can bring present the pain and the joy, the laughter and the tears. And that's the space that we've all co-created through that lovely conversation. So with that in mind, I'm going to grab my harmonica, and I invite everybody for about 3 or 4 minutes now to turn your attention to the chat. So thank you so much, everybody, for this wonderful chat. Just because the music has stopped doesn't mean you have to stop entering any names or experiences in the chat. And even if you haven't entered someone in the chat, just know that just thinking about them, considering this query, being part of this honor ceremony, you're participating in something that's giving all of us a lot of life and comfort tonight. So thank you so much for that. Maybe we should just take a collective breath just to settle ourselves after such a beautiful sharing. I'll just suggest everyone ground their feet on the floor. You can move your head around and sit up if you can, if you're able to sit up straight, but whatever posture you take is totally great. And let's just take a deep breath in on the count of 3. 3, 2, 1. And in. And out. One more deep breath before we move back in together to this space. Well, thank you now for bearing witness to one another and for creating this space with all of us. I'm going to pull back up a slide here, and I'm going to invite back our keynote speakers this evening. And we are going to now collectively participate in our final blessing this evening, which is a candle extinguishing.
Brad, I just wanted to
Yes.
mention that there are 2 Leslies in this call. There's a Leslie with an EY and a Leslie with an I. We may have lost our Leslie because of the maintenance issues, but I hope she's there. Wait,
Yeah.
Laura, unmute.
She's back with just an I.
Okay.
Lesli. That's her. She's back. She's back
Fantastic.
on another device. I got
Holy
my
moly.
eyes on her. Okay.
All right, so I'll read this the first time, and then Leslie, then you can go, then Nora. And if wherever you are, you want to read along with us, that would be fantastic. And then upon our third reading of this, as we really feel these words, I'll invite us all to then collectively extinguish our candles as a community on the count of 3. And at that point, even if you don't have a candle to extinguish, if you want to just take another deep breath with us, that can be your way of participating in this portion of the evening. So by extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
All right, 3, 2, 1. So that concludes the formal part of our ceremony this evening. Now I'd like to invite my colleague Andy back up with me as we share a couple of notes and announcements about things to come and other wonderful offerings that are coming down the pipeline here. I've been hearing this conversation obviously with Nora and Leslie, and thinking about your journeys and your experiences, and what I mentioned at the end is how powerful it was to hear your stories and how each of us have a narrative, and how we see the world is so important. The way you're able to look out at life and find these moments to reflect on and bring to your own attention and then to our awareness has been such a gift. We know that the social media world is extremely toxic. And at Reimagine, we've been working very hard on something behind the scenes over the last couple of years to really reimagine what some of these social tools can be used for, to create a safe space where instead of just mindlessly liking posts and things like that, we can just be holding space for one another and honoring each other's journeys and creating an environment that gently moves us through our grief and through the pain of life toward ways of integrating those hard things in ways that lead to love, that lead to service, that lead to creativity. And so we want to invite you who are here into something special with us. The technical term in this internet building world, but this beta launch, this test launch of this new tool that we're creating to help people, all of us, really share our stories through the pain of life, but support one another in that process and find support and comfort, and then actually go out in the world and do something with that energy that is created in our hearts to honor those experiences in ways that bring more peace and connection to the world. So with that in mind, my colleague Nicole is going to drop a link in the chat. And if you're interested in what I'm sharing, it's a link to a survey about this evening. So we also really want your feedback about this experience, which will help us improve this moving forward. And we really, honestly, all of your feedback is super appreciated. It's what helps us deliver these events. We're a nonprofit. All of these experiences that we're going to talk about in a second are free of charge, including tonight, and it's powered by your support, the support of our community. And so we need to find ways to keep reaching people, to keep creating spaces like this where people can share their stories, and we can honor one another's journeys. And to talk a little bit about some other experiences that we have coming down the pipeline that I'm talking about, I want to bring back Andy to share about what's upcoming.
Thank you, Brad. Our theme in June is father loss. Holidays like Father's Day can be joyful, and they can also be painful. This gathering, our focus on father loss is quite expansive. You may be mourning the death of a parent or a father figure, or your father might be living, but you're grieving a relationship that is estranged or broken. You might be a bereaved parent, or in Henry Cameron Allen's terminology, a peregrine. And when you get that video from Reimagine, you'll hear more about this term peregrine. We have terms for widows and widowers. We have terms for orphans. There really isn't a common term for a bereaved parent. So a peregrine is like a wanderer, a lost traveler. And you might be feeling that this holiday. You might be a primary caregiver for a father or an elder with dementia, or you are seeking ways to show up for a friend or a colleague experiencing father loss. This gathering is for you. So join us on June 13th for Breathing Between Burdens. It is a gathering about fatherhood and Black grief. We are centering the Black voices of our community, but people of all backgrounds are invited to listen, to learn, to witness, and to expand their grief literacy. Guest speakers include Tashelle Bourdaire, James Harris, John Onwuchekwa, and our moderator is Jasmine Miner. So we hope to see you there. We also have dozens of collaborator events this month focused on father loss, but also focused on a wide range of topics related to adversity, loss, and mortality. Tomorrow, Grief and Light is hosting a session for bereaved siblings with a focus on stigmatized losses such as overdose, addiction, suicide, and more. Please come to that. And on June 9th, death doula Katie Cooper will be hosting a weekly Circle of Presence for 8 sessions. This is for folks who are feeling absolutely drained by the current political climate. It's a sanctuary for emotional support in these chaotic times. And one more event I wanted to highlight on July 6th, you can meet Henry Cameron Mitchell live in a virtual space for peregrines or grieving parents and others seeking to reimagine grief in the company of other grief walkers. We also have our series Making Connections on June 12th. This is the final session of this series. Perhaps some of you attended our showcase in April of 25 innovative projects that are reducing the loneliness epidemic. We did notice at the very beginning of the vigil, an emotion that someone was feeling was loneliness. That is very common. We are going more in depth with some of these 25 innovators. This session, our focus is on third places. Maybe some of you know this term, maybe some of you don't. What is a third place? It's not home, it's not work. It's a place in your community where you might form connections with others, even if it's a momentary connection. It could be a public square, it could be a coffee house, a bookstore, or a reimagined virtual vigil. You'll be able to meet Ann Basting, who is growing memory cafes for people with dementia and their caregivers. We have Dr. Dixon Chibanda, who began the Friendship Bench in Zimbabwe to connect elders with suicidal youth, and friendship benches are popping up around the world. We have Orly Israel, who is using the listening table to connect folks in the aftermath of the LA fires. And this series is hosted by author and journalist Allison Gilbert. And what else? Room for Grief. This is our monthly drop-in series for all kinds of grief. It's peer-led, it's prompt-driven. And this Room for Grief will be led by Magda Sengwan Peng, who's a death doula and an artist. And you're invited to that as well.
Wow, thank you so much, Andy. You know, just to say, Andy just shared all those events that are coming down the pipeline at Reimagine. We've hosted now, I think, between 3,500 and 4,000 events through this platform that people in the community are putting on, that we're putting on. And the idea is that we believe, some of the questions that were asked about, you know, leave for grief, that our culture does a really bad job at creating spaces that are both accessible and engaging, that help us be with the hard parts of life. We want to make sure that everybody has a space to turn, that no one's turned away. And we're trying to model that out in the world and inspire other folks to join us by creating experiences. So if you want to create an experience for your community or for our community, for the community, please, you can get in touch. You can host experiences through our platform, and your financial support allows us to make these experiences free and accessible. So thank you in advance and again for that. Now, Leslie and Nora, if you're still there, as you were speaking, I was reflecting on your relationship and wrote a little poem that I wanted to share with you as a symbol of our gratitude at Reimagine for you taking the time to be with us tonight. And the title of the poem is called Phoenix Friends. It's a poetry modality that I have been working on and experimenting with for many years now, and all these vigils. They're 5 lines, 3 syllables each. It's way easier than a haiku, and I recommend it to anyone who's trying to make something sound good, even if you don't know how to write poetry. So, Phoenix Friends, this is about you two. Your friendship, rising from what is gone, shows us how hearts grow strong. So thank you so much to each of you. And then I encourage everyone to follow you on social media, to get your books. I hope my colleague Nicole has popped in all of your links into the chat so everyone can stay up to date with you, and you are a big part of our family, so thank you. And I also want to say a big thank you to Reimagine staff, Andy, Dara, Nicole, Amanda, thank you so much for being here this evening to support this vigil. People staying up late, people who are been working all day and then want to take time out of their day to spend time with all of us to make this go off with as few hitches as possible. And I think we've done a good job. So thank you to our wonderful staff. And then most importantly, thank you to all of you for showing up. Really just showing up. That's so much of the work we're about. If you can just show up, keep showing up for yourself, for your own community, what else can we really do? That would go a long way in changing this world. So thank you. Every month, sad but glad, to mourn, grieve, grow, and love together. And the every month means come back again next month for our vigil. We want to build this as a community of people and friends that are there. We have special guests every month, like these tonight, and we try to create an environment where people can just be with what is. And you've done that this evening. So I'm going to stop my share. We have 1 minute to go. And with that in mind, let's see. Do we lose Leslie and Nora? I think maybe we did, which is okay because they've already given us so much. And for those of you that are left, we're going to do one thing because I want to hear everybody's voice in this space. We've all heard the incredible guests this evening, but now we want to hear from you. And with only 1 minute to go, we know there's only one thing that's going to sound good, and that is the word love. The internet doesn't make anything else sound good, but if we can unmute ourselves and on the count of 3, we can all together collectively say, just on repeat, the word love, I will bet that you'll be astounded by the positive reverberations that hit your eardrums. So on the count of 3, let's end this beautiful vigil to say thanks to all of you with the word love. 3, 2, 1.
Love.
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 Everybody love, 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 love,
Love, love,
love, love, love, love, love,
love, and love,
love, love.
love and goodbyes.